I'm chatting all about my two latest makes, which is the Vogue 9253. Very different dresses I made using this pattern. I've paired some really beautiful necklaces with these two dresses that were actually kindly gifted to me by the Happiness Boutique. So if you'd like to hear a little bit more about them and maybe hear about a little discount code, then keep watching until the end and I'll tell you all about it. So if you'd like to hear more, then keep watching. Everyone, welcome back to my vlog. This is Susie from Thread Quarters. Thanks so much for joining me today. So I have made two of the V9253 pattern, and it is a very easy Vogue, and I'm sure all of you have heard and seen many versions of this dress on YouTube, and also Instagram is full, if you check the hashtag out, of all the gorgeous versions, and I have lusted after it for such a long time. And this year I was invited to a wedding, and I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to make myself a very special dress to wear to it, because I don't really wear dresses very often, to be honest. I'm sure if you followed me along for a while now, you'd know that I don't really wear dresses very much. So yeah, it was just a good excuse to make something a bit fancier. And also, again, if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen my stories a while back. I was deliberating between two different fabrics, both Lady McElroy fabrics, and this was one of them. It's a lovely viscose with a sort of like a dobby print to it. Can you see that texture that's in there? And I absolutely fell in love with it. I actually have this in the green colorway as well, although I haven't made it up into anything yet. I do have plans for this summer to do something with it. But I knew that this color would really suit me, and I was also deliberating between this and a beautiful chiffon that's more purples and pinks colors, and I just couldn't choose between the two. And Sherwood Fabrics, which is where I bought them from, had a sale. They always seem to have a sale, so I only ever buy fabrics from them when they have a sale on, and I decided to just go for both of them. I know, a little crazy. I decided to buy enough to make the midi dress out of this fabric and the maxi dress out of the chiffon, because I thought that you'll see it soon, the large bold print would suit maxi better, and this is a bit of a smaller, but it's still quite a large print, but smaller than the other one. So and then I had to decide which one I thought would be better for the wedding itself, and I ended up deciding that I wanted maxi and chiffon and floaty and all that sort of vibe for the wedding. I just thought it would be just a little bit more special. And kind of crazy, because this isn't cheap fabric, I decided that I would do a toile or muslin wearable toile out of this fabric, so that is what I did. The pattern itself calls for, without any alterations, you'll see it has an incredibly deep V. It's very revealing. It's too revealing for me. And I'd seen various different versions of how people had tackled this issue, because again, it may be too revealing for other people as well. And the most common way is that the center V is sewn up to whatever height you want. And if I'm being totally honest, I don't really like that look of the seam going up between the bust. It's just a personal preference, and I had seen a couple of people, not very many people, overlapping at the front to make a little faux wrap, and I much preferred that look, so that's what I decided to do. Now, what I don't like about the big four patterns, most of them do this, is you can buy one set of sizes in one envelope and the larger set of sizes in another envelope, and I either the very top of the small sizes or the very bottom of the large sizes. So I have to make a decision as to whether to buy the smaller sizes or the larger sizes. And in this occasion, I didn't even know I had done this, and after I had done, I bought the larger sizes. So large, and extra, extra large is what this packet is. And based on my sizes, my personal body measurements, I do slot into the large category. However, then once I'd already bought this, I heard reviews. I'd seen the Stitch Sisters website review. They've got a great review. They've made loads of these dresses, so do check that video out too. I'm sure you've all seen it. And they made the medium, and I thought I probably should be making the medium as well. But this is the pattern I had. I didn't want to go and buy another one, so I just went ahead with this one. So in terms of any alterations to this version, which I will try and do some cutaways so you can see it properly. I will also admit that because this was my Royal Toile and I was running out of time, I haven't hemmed my sleeves or the bottom of my, the bottom of the dress either. I will get around to doing it because I do love this dress a lot, but I was on a deadline for the wedding, the dress I was going to wear to the actual wedding. So for this particular version, I just took the pattern pieces and overlapped them slightly. No other alterations, and it just meant that I had, I think, maybe one less pleat. There's 2 pleats here on either side, and I just have one little pleat on either side now because of the overlap. Took away one of the pleats essentially, but it worked really well. But large was definitely too big for me, and just in terms of the way that you sew this up, I had already sewn the side seams, and then when I went to put the zip in, I had to pull it in, take probably 2 or 3 inches out of both sides. So it actually does mean that my side seam is back here rather than it should be about there. But as you'll see, well, you probably can't see very well. As I say, I'll do some cutaways. It turns out fine and it fits really nicely. It did bring the neck in quite a lot here, but I think that's quite nice. I think in the original and in other versions of this dress, the neckline is wider, but I do think this is quite nice. I like it a lot. This fabric is beautiful. I love the drape of it. It's just so floaty and flowy, and to be honest, I was in 2 minds about whether I just wear this dress to the wedding because it's beautiful and I love the midi length on me as well. I think it's very flattering. For this version as well, I did do French seams nearly everywhere because this fabric frays a lot. I will say one thing about this fabric that I do not like is that it is very, very easy to pull, and it does create a line. I'm quite sure I can show you. You can see some lines there of where it's been pulled, and it changes the colour there. And there's actually quite a lot in here at the skirt. There's a really bad one. So because of that, I would maybe not recommend this fabric. It really is, it's not something that should be happening to your fabric. It means that you have to be so careful, but as soon as sometimes you just put a pin in and it catches the wrong way, and that's it, you've got this big line in your fabric. Because this pattern is so busy, you don't really notice it, so it's okay. It hasn't totally ruined the dress, and I will wear it, but it was an issue. And as I say, I have this in the green colorway and I haven't made it up yet, and I'm kind of dreading it, to be honest, because it sort of makes me feel like it's not an everyday wear fabric. If you had like a little hangnail, it would catch on the dress and it would pull the fabric, so that is not good. Yes, for this version as well, the pattern instructions have you sew the waist tie into the seam for your invisible zip. So I just went ahead and did that, and it's totally fine. I like it a lot. I did a different thing for the next dress, which I will chat through in a second. And I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I could say about this particular dress. The other thing I did differently, partly because I just sort of have a love-hate relationship with bias binding. The neckline, the V-neck and the back neckline are finished differently. The V-neck is a just like a little narrow hem on itself, but then the back neckline you put bias binding on it, and I'm not really a big fan of bias binding. It can look good or it can look really bad. So what I actually ended up doing, and I quite like the finish of it, is I actually just overlocked the edge, turned it under and top stitched it, and it turned out to me very neat. If you can see that just a little bit there, and just carried it on, and I thought, yeah, that's nice. But I have so much more to talk about the maxi chiffon dress, so I'm gonna power on and chat about that now. Okay, so this is the beautiful drapey, floaty chiffon dress that I made for the wedding. I just absolutely love this print. It's just makes my heart sing. I love it so much. So this was my first time working with chiffon. I have worked with it a little bit in the past, but not very well. So it was a bit of a leap of faith for me to decide to make such a dress out of such tricky fabric. So I'm going to talk through the various things I did to help working with this fabric. So the main thing I did, which I have never done before, is I spray starched my fabric completely, just hung it outside on the washing line before it was even cut. I'd pre-washed it and spray starched the whole way. I used the Dylon spray starch, and I used a whole tin on the floral fabric, and I used half a tin on my lining fabric, and it made a huge difference. Unbelievable amount of difference. I was quite nervous. You do a patch test beforehand just to make sure it's not going to damage or stain your fabric. It seemed totally fine, so I went ahead and did it. I was kind of nervous doing it, but yeah, I went ahead and did it. And honestly, I don't think I could have made this dress if I hadn't have spray starched it. It was my friend Lynn who suggested it, so thank you so much, Lynn. I owe you a lot for that suggestion. It works so well. So obviously I have French seamed everywhere. Everywhere is nice little teeny tiny French seams. And I did narrow hems on the sleeves here. There, you can see. This pattern isn't lined, so because this is a sheer fabric, I had to also think about how I was going to approach that. And I had two options. I could either do a little slip that I would just wear underneath the chiffon dress, or I would do some sort of lining that is actually integrated into the dress. So that's obviously what I ended up doing. This fabric is just like it's called what was it called? Something like a silky satin type thing. And do you know what? This fabric, so much harder to work with than the chiffon, even when it had been starched. I hated this fabric, and I have some left over that I had planned I was going to make into some kind of like nice top. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I could put myself through sewing with that fabric again. It's horrendous. Anyway, I mean, it worked out fine in the end. So if I turn it inside out, you can see what I have done. So I'm really just so pleased with the finish that I have of this dress. I really did. I just worked so slowly and carefully and took my time, and I really enjoyed the process. If you were watching me along on Instagram stories, I was sharing a lot of the process there. Although I did sort of, I had planned on sharing it all, but life just got too busy and I didn't have time to actually get the phone out and film every single bit. But you'll see that the lining here is part just sort of to the shoulders, and then I left the sleeves unlined, and I treated this as the bodice part is underlined rather than lined. And the way that that works is you base the two fabrics together and then treat them as one. So what you'll see here is I first of all did tiny little narrow hems with my narrow hem foot, and it worked really well because the fabric was starched. I think if it hadn't have been starched, that would have been a nightmare. And then you can see my French seams there. What I did here is I turned over, this is the inside of the neckline, I turned over the fabric on itself and I hand stitched this fabric to the underlining, not going through to the outside. So it meant that it's a totally smooth neckline with no stitching. The pattern tells you to, you know, just do a narrow hem, so there would be top stitching along there or just stitching along there. But I didn't want that on the chiffon, so that's how I ended up. It did mean I had to do hand stitching. I actually really like hand stitching. I find it very relaxing when it goes well. And I mean, you can see that is my invisible zip. It is very invisible, so I'm so happy with that. I had the issue of how I was going to finish. I have worn this dress, so it's probably a little bit wrinkled now. How I was going to finish off the seam here, because I really didn't know. Obviously you can't do French seams where the zip is, and because this is an underlining rather than a lining, I couldn't just conceal the zip. Well, if I had have made this lining and concealed the zip between the lining and the chiffon, you would have seen the zip showing through the chiffon. So I couldn't do that. So what I ended up doing was trimming my seam allowance to just less than the width of the zip, and I hand stitched the zip again only to the underlining and not to the chiffon. So again, there's no stitching here on either side of the zip, but you can see there's tiny little puckers. That would be just my hand stitching. And you will see also that there is bias binding. Remember, I just said I don't like bias binding, but this is different. And again, I wasn't sure how I was going to finish off the attaching the bodice to the skirt, and so I just thought the best option would be to bind that, and I just think it's a really beautiful finish. These skirt pieces are separate, so essentially this is a lining underneath the chiffon, and what I did for these, for this edge underneath the zip, is before I attached it, I put narrow hems on each layer, and that was how I finished that off there. You can sort of see, let me see, yeah, you can see underneath there it just continues on, and I just did that full back seam. I just sewed it normally, and then, but I had previously done narrow hem all the way down, just finishing that off. I then had to decide what length I wanted my lining to be and the length of the skirt. I had cut this pink to the midi length just to give me quite a lot of play and scope. I knew I wanted to leave a little bit sheer at the bottom, and my mum also suggested maybe I would like a split in the dress, so I did go ahead and do that. I'm going to turn this the right way around now. So I decided to put a split in the center front seam. This has a center front seam and the side seams, and the skirt is panelled. And again, I had to think about how I was going to deal with finishing the center front seam if I was going to have a split. And what I ended up, I mean, I thought about this a lot and I don't even know if I did this the right way, but it has worked for me. What I actually did was I finished both sides with, again, a little narrow hem. Boy, I did a lot of narrow hems on this dress. And then I actually French seamed down to about my knee and just treated it as possible, cut it all, you know, trimmed it, did my second seam for the French seam. But of course, the bit that is left still has the narrow hem on it, so it is completely finished. That's my split. So you can sort of see, there's my French seam going down there. I just pivoted and sewed to the edge there, and then you have my two sides coming out. Sorry, it's there. And that's my split. So then that also dictated the length of my lining, and I just made it quite short actually. And then the final thing I had to decide was how I was going to hem the actual dress. And because I know from experience that I am not good at doing the narrow hem foot over a seam, especially not a French seam, that I am not able to do that at all. I don't know if it is actually physically possible. If you're able to do that, I'd love to know how you do it. Please give me all the tips, because I can't. So since the skirt had already been sewn together so that I could decide on the length, I had to think of a different way of finishing the hem. And I decided I was going to try it on a scrap of fabric first. I have never done this before. The rolled hem option on the overlocker. And I thought it looked really good, so I just went ahead and did that all around the hem. And, oh, come on, focus. Yeah, I love it. It's really, really nice, and oh my goodness, so easy. I went with grey because I just thought that was the most sort of neutral. I did try pink and it just really stood out too much. I just wanted it to be not noticeable at all, and I think the grey worked the best on that. You can see that's it there, and it has a little bit of a lettucey edge, which actually I really like. And then the final thing I had to do was wash the starch out. Oh, I was so nervous about doing that. So nervous of having to wash the dress. I've just spent hours and hours hand sewing and putting so much love and effort into this dress, and I had to go and wash it before even being able to wear it. So I washed it in the bath, and I dried it in between two towels, rolling it up and sort of squeezing it out as gently as possible, let that dry a bit, and then hung it outside to dry. And wow, the difference in the drape of the fabric once I had taken out the starch was incredible, like chalk and cheese. It really was so amazing, and just I fell in love with the dress all over again. It just was, I love that drape and the floatiness. It's just gorgeous. I'm not sure why I did it this way, but I decided just to do the strap or the waist tie separate, just as a wee separate thing, and not sewn into the back seam, which is fine. It worked out fine. So the one thing I did differently with the purple dress is the front overlap. I actually added on a tapered wedge to the front seam. You know, this section here, I actually added a little bit like that. So it meant that I still had the two pleats here and also some overlap. And I think it worked out really well. And also I took a good chunk out of the side seams here and then tapered it out to just keeping the width of the skirt. But I took the chunk out of the side seams because I knew from this version that it's too big for me. So I wasn't taking a ton out of the back seam instead. And it means that my side seams were in line with my sides. I really hope you enjoyed my review of the V9253 Vogue Very Easy Dress. I do think it's a lovely dress. If you pick the right fabric, it is easy. I did not pick easy fabric to sew with, so it wasn't easy. But I'm so pleased with the work that I put into my dress. The purple one in particular, and also this blue one. I know I'm going to get loads of wear out of it. So if you did enjoy my review, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do subscribe if you enjoy my channel as well. And you may have noticed that I've been wearing this absolutely beautiful gold-plated necklace here, and this was kind of gifted to me by the Happiness Boutique. Also the amazing necklace that I have wearing in the cutaways with my purple dress, also from the Happiness Boutique. They're offering a discount code, which I'll put in the description box down below for my viewers as well. They are based in Germany, but they ship free worldwide, and they have a really lovely, beautiful selection of jewellery that I think would complement your handmade garments beautifully. They have some really lovely layering pieces that I just think are very on trend at the moment, and also just very easy to wear. But then they do have the blingy statement ones as well. So if you do like the look of these necklaces, then please do go ahead and follow the link down below and use that discount code. So anyway, until next time guys, bye.